This area up here, Roddy Island, Ayers Reef, Ayers Dugout, all the way up here to Ayers Point. You can even incorporate second chain islands if you so choose. We really haven't targeted that area that much, primarily here on the reefs. Ayers Island, Rattlesnake, all this area in here, we've kind of worked these areas up and down here, primarily with looking for grass, as that's going to be that's the common denominator for this any time of year primarily, but really as we get into the springtime, because that's where your bigger trout are going to start laying their eggs. That's what they're going to be looking for. Our water temps have now pretty been consistently upper 60s, low 70s. We've even seen it touch 74, 75 on a day or two, late afternoon. If that sun's been beaming on there, we've had a few big old bluebird sky days in low wind conditions. So those days have kind of warmed up, and so has that water. Of course, we have a lot of moving water in and out, but our water levels are being pretty consistent, anywhere from that knee to upper thigh to waist deep water's been pretty much holding for the most part, unless there's a specific tide that you really want to work, whether it be a lower tide or an incoming or an outgoing, whatever it is that you have a choice or that you choose that you really want to work. But these areas have been holding some decent fish, trout primarily, and that's primarily we've kind of started just transitioning to the point of just targeting trout. Of course, we've caught redfish in and amongst those types of areas, but that's kind of what we're looking for right now from now until middle or end of May. These 2 months, April and May, should give you some opportunities at some places. If you know primarily where those grass areas are that you really want to target, whether it be up here in the Mesquite or San Antonio Bay area, or down in the lower or upper lagunas, whether it be Nueces, Aransas, wherever there's a particular area that you like, that that those grass beds are consistent and they're around there, closer to the shorelines, a little bit more obscure or out of the way places, where boat traffic wise, cannot get too into those areas. Those are areas that you're really going to want to target and take your time with. All that types of areas, because that's where your better trout are going to be when they're getting ready to lay these eggs. They don't want to be disrupted by the boat traffic, since we've got so much of it. We got these kind of boats that can burn shorelines and those types of areas. So if you know of an area that's kind of consistent to that or with that, take your time and focus on that area. You might give yourself an opportunity to catch you a quality fish. Now, we're on the backside of the big moon, as we're transitioning into our transition days, wild card days, if you will, headed toward that new moon. We've been using primarily the smaller bait sizes, whether it be in the down south, the original size, the burner shad, the Little Johns, Little John XL, soft dines. Have not thrown the XLs in that, but just primarily the smaller bait version throughout that big moon phase. Working these shorelines like that. If you see the potholes, they've been really just kind of peppering the potholes with those, with a 16th ounce jig head. The knock and tail lures as well, marker 54. They've got a newer bait out now. It's got a paddle tail with it. Have not thrown it, but it is available on the market right now, and it's going to be a bait that you're going to be interested in throwing. Whether if you're a big fan of the jerk shrimp, then you're going to be happy with the paddle tail as well. I've just used it personally, but not on any trips as of yet. But good quality bait, great action that's going to be on it. So. And of course, the other bait that down south came out with, the big smooth bait, that's going to be a bait that you're going to want to use as well during these next couple of months to really kind of target those bigger fish. Primarily all we've been working is around the minors and majors on our days. Our majors are kind of really early right now and late evening, but you can transition into that minor during the day, and the bite's been pretty decent midday. If you want to get even later into the morning time, into the early afternoons, you can still give yourself an opportunity during those time frames. But again, just kind of work the shell areas, work those areas like that. We've caught some decent trout around there. Nothing great as of yet, but we're still targeting that, and that's what we're kind of primarily doing. Pay attention to what your weather patterns are, what's going on as we transition into this April and May month coming up. Big winds, what can crank up on you if you're not careful. Your mornings can start out pretty decent, and as it gets throughout the day, you just kind of want to plan your day around that, especially if you don't like to fish big, heavy winds. You can still catch fish in those time frames or around that stuff, but Some people don't want to contend with it, but it's really a good time frame. So just be careful, plan your day out accordingly, and be safe on the water. Up here in Allen's Bight, down by the ranch house, all this area back in here, another great area. You know, you've got grass that's all back in this area. If you fish back in Allen's, it's pretty popular areas, especially as we get later into the spring and in the summertime. Allen's is always a great go-to or community spot, as we like to call it. I like to get back in these back lake areas, especially when the water levels start to pop back up, as we're starting getting it more consistently back in here. You've got drop edges, you've got some guts that are back in these areas through here. And of course, all these back lakes, they interconnect. As long as you got enough water to run back there, if you got the right kind of boat, you know, if you can run in super skinny stuff and not worry about your motor overheating, you can run these back lakes and pop out all the way over there toward by Jaybird Point and some of those areas there and just stay in the back lakes. When that water really starts to get up for us like that, I like to hang out back here in these back areas because we really get some opportunities. That's where the topwater game really comes in handy back in here, whether it be the lay or just a spook junior or she dog, he dog, whatever you like. These areas light up really, they're a lot of fun too, man, because you get those blow-ups that are back there, and again, the water temps are starting to really get into the more favorable frame-wise, and you can find some big trout back in here. You can find some quality redfish back in here. You know, if you're throwing plastics, you can find some drum or some flounder that are back in some of these areas. Primarily, like I say, we're primarily just focusing on trout right now. That's the main focus. We're trying to cherry pick big girls out of here somewhere, see if we can't find a quality, you know, anywhere from 6 to 8 pound fish. If we're fortunate enough, something bigger than that. But that's the goal. That's what we're out here doing. So some days we swing and miss, and other days we've had some pretty quality days. Not so much big fish, but we found quality fish. Some mid-20s back in some of these areas, upper teens, the 17s to 19s. Of course, you know, if you're planning on keeping trout moving forward, the new regulation went in on the 26th of this month, March, and that's 15 to 20 inches, 3 fish, and that's trout only. Of course, your redfish and all that amounts are still the same in slot size and all that. Nothing changed for any of the other species, just primarily trout. So just make sure you keep that in mind as we move forward into the rest of our spring and in our summertime. But as we work these areas here during this big moon phase, you know, it was all smaller stuff. You know, burner shad, little johns, soft dines, those size. Like we've even thrown a few of the jerk shrimp, marker 54, just to see if fish are reacting to the shrimp, and we've caught a few fish off of those as well. But again, like I said, nothing great, but opportunities are there. Pay attention to what your water levels are doing, how much water's moving in, how much water's moving out, and it can dictate to you these back lake areas, and you can really have some quality days, quality mornings, afternoons, whatever you like. Back here in these areas, of course, you got great structure that's back in here. You know, we haven't totally moved away from the squishy mud. It's just kind of on those days as we move into the mornings. You know, early mornings, we're still kind of targeting those types of areas. Again, grass is the common denominator. We really want to find the grass areas. A lot of these areas out front is starting to develop the grass back, and you'll find the potholes that are out there, and just kind of work these areas really well. Take your time. Be really patient with it, because the little fish are going to start showing up in there if they haven't already. And when some of the areas we've had, you know, we've caught lots of fish on a particular day, but nothing really bigger than 15 or 16 inches. So they're there. One little indicator for you, if you're fishing some of these areas and you start catching a bunch of male trout in a particular area, just kind of plant your feet there and be real patient. Just slow everything down, because more than likely there's a big girl that's there is kind of getting her nest ready to go to start to lay eggs. So just a great little key for you. If that does happen to you, just slow it down, work the baits really well, whatever you like. Go to your go-to bait or whatever you have the most confidence in, and just be very surgeonistically around an area, and just be smart with it, and just kind of take your time and work it real well. Down here, Rattlesnake Point in Copano Bay, Redfish Bay Lodge, this whole front shoreline. Of course, you know when you get your big winds that are popping out of here, and this shoreline right here out in front of the old Redfish Lodge area, or the new Redfish Lodge that's coming, this whole shoreline from that southeast south breeze really sets up and is protected for you really well. You can find some quality fish that are out here. We found some decent fish in here, so in that upper teens, that 17 to 19 mark, which has been very good, you know, up to 3 pounds, maybe 3.5 pound fish in here. Then we come back, work the little guts here on some of that fallen tide just to see if we can't find some fish coming through there. And then, of course, out here on the point, rattlesnake comes way out here on this point like this. And this whole little area right here, you got an edge that's out on this side. You got the deeper edge on the other side. You got that old broken down duck blind that's out there. So all this point right here is very easily to wade. It's all the perfect depth, and you got the right kind of structure on it. Not as much grass on it. I wish there was more grass that would grow up on that, because man, if that thing right there, because it can light up. In years past, it used to have some really good grass that was on there. We had some quality days that were on top of that little that point out there. But it's a mix between mud and shale. It's not squishy mud, and it's not hard packed sand. So you got a little just a little mix that's in there. So it really sets up well for this springtime, and as we transition into these warmer water days, especially when you get into those low 70s to mid to upper 70s. And we work these areas here, and you got the good structure that's in there. All that area there kind of lights up for us. So, primarily, number one key thing, bait's going to be more and more and more as we get the bait migration that's going to probably start happening here for us within the next few weeks. If it hadn't already really started, you'll start to see the menhaden, start seeing big schools of menhaden and the shad and stuff like that. Shad's kind of like your first indicator. You start seeing those out there in the ship channel and those areas like that. It's just kind of an indicator, lets you know that all these migratory bait's going to start rolling back into our system, which is a plus. Fish have a little bit more opportunity, and that's why the artificial game is always so important during the winter months and the colder days, because there's not as much bait in our system. It gives you better opportunities to catch those quality fish, but we're going to try to cherry pick with our bait still. So knowing the areas, what time of year, where you need to fish, a certain specific type of structure and bottom is always key to it. Make sure you factor in a major and a minor, what goes on with that. I mean, if you don't know about that, really research it. Text me, call me, email me, whatever. Happy to explain it to you in the how the event works. It's a little bit different every time from major to minor and from day to day, so it's not an exact science, but if you start to kind of follow it, you'll understand what it's all about. It's a very key thing in throwing artificials. But, we kind of live by that on that aspect of it, outside of the other key factors in your bait and the system and that type of thing. But that said, again, the down south, not any particular flavor that's been better than anything else. It's just kind of dictated off what our watercolor is. Now the clarity of it is kind of, we got our darker baits or lighter baits, whatever we have, whatever our conditions dictate to us. And of course, around the moon, big moon, again, it was a smaller profile baits that were very productive for us. And as we're transitioning, getting to wild card days, have a little bit of everything: bigger baits, fatter baits, smaller baits, longer baits, more action baits, whatever. Top water. Have a little bit of variety in your box, or have a different box. You can mark one new moon phase, full moon phase, wild card days, if you want to have 3 different boxes if you so choose. And that way you kind of have a little variety of everything. It kind of takes all the guesswork out of it. You already preset that box up. Just a little tip that you can use if you so choose. But working these areas, it's like I say, it's been pretty good for us. Now to continue to see that probably will continue to improve as we get into our springtime. Again, we're trying to cherry pick and trying to find big girls that are laying up in some of these areas, and trying to find those obscure areas really, and just kind of really go to town on that and be surgical with those types of areas, taking your time with it. We may not cover but one area during a wade, but if we find that one quality fish or a couple of quality fish out, it's been worth the whole day for us. So anyhow, enjoy your springtime as we're fixing to jump into April. Hope everybody had a great Easter. We've got great weather that's ahead, so make sure that you can get yourself and take advantage of these great opportunities.